Good morning. I am coming to you today because I was just inspired to come in and talk to you about a subject that's really dear to my heart. So if you do come in later and you're watching this on a replay, please let me know, say hello. I'm not quite sure what's going to come out today. I haven't got anything planned. Um, but I wanted to talk to you just about courage and anxiety and grief and all of that stuff. And so this might be a bit long. So just warning you, if you've come in now, this might be a bit lengthy. And the reason being is that I was interviewed yesterday by a woman about courage. Well, my theme was courage. And she wanted to interview me about my story. And it occurred to me that I was telling my story and I was talking about what courage meant for me and how if I'd known how much courage I always had, how my life may have been differently. It may have been different, it may not have been different, but it may have been different. But what I also see is so much courage in women, and they don't see that in themselves. And so it occurred to me really to come in to you today and talk about a little bit about my story and a little bit about just how much courage and bravery it takes for us to be open to healing and seeing something different. And I know from talking to the loads of women that I've spoken to already in this group, some of you I've known for quite a long time anyway, just the courage that you continually, take to move forwards in your life, whatever occurs, whatever's going on, the willingness to see something different, and that kind of power to keep moving forward. And I think I wrote this morning on the Gratitude Day, just like the power behind nature is the same power that drives us as human beings. It's just that we feel separate from that, and we completely underestimate our innate resilience and innate courage. So a little bit about my story for those of you that don't know me at all. I was 21 when my brother was killed in a motorbike accident, and my father was in the same accident. And my sister was 16. My parents had just got divorced 2 years before. And I was at uni at the time in Derby, and I got the news, I got a phone call from my sister, and I drove down to Colchester General, and I had to identify my brother's body. And at that point, I never realized like the courage that took. And it's only looking back that I see that. So that's like the first glimpse where we just have no idea how we're going to react when we're presented with really traumatic circumstances, and how all of us actually really have so much innate resilience, and we just get through these things no matter what. And after that, after the funeral and everything, I looked after my dad really for the rest of his life, but meanwhile lived my life. He had severe head injury and spinal injury. And when I first went back to Derby, I quit my English degree at uni and joined Nottingham University to do nurse training, psychiatric nurse training. But I got really quite heavily into drugs. And my dad was quite suicidal at the time, so I was constantly toing and froing from Derby to where was he at the time? Sybil Hedingham, which is the road from Colchester to Cambridge. And that was really difficult for me, and I was still young, and I was trying to manage my sort of young relationship, but I just was in my mind thinking that if I took loads of drugs, I could kind of temporarily escape. And it worked for a while. But then I just kind of started to grow out of it and naturally kind of came off the drugs. But as I started to do that, a lot of people around me weren't doing that. And a lot of people around me were getting actually quite ill from taking the drugs. And I got the kind of inspired idea really to find out and study more about why people got addicted to drugs, to alcohol. One of my friends died to alcohol poisoning or alcohol usage. And so that's how I got into, hi Amy. That's how I got into drug and alcohol counselling, because I just had an interest. It sparked my interest that I'd really got heavily into drugs. I'd managed to sort of come out of it, and other people around me weren't seemingly able to do that. So in the meantime, my father was suicidal. He tried to kill himself. And I ended up moving to Cambridge, and hence I started a life in Cambridge at around the age of kind of 20, 25, 26, met a boy, as they say. And I was still, I think, at that point, incredibly anxious, only I didn't realize that I was incredibly anxious, and I was a complete control freak. And part of that was like absolutely being the one who took care of my dad and being there continually. And then I joined the community drug and alcohol team in Cambridge and worked my way up to be like a specialist counsellor, and they promoted me to set up the service at Adam Brooks Hospital, which I did very successfully as the control freak that I am and workaholic, because I know for me, like the grief, it came out in like high achiever, addict. And so, yeah, I was, sort of very driven, pushed myself forward. And also I had a baby, my baby, Zach, when I was 28. So all this time, I'm still sort of, I've moved from Derby to Cambridge, which I think took courage because I didn't know anyone apart from my dad. It was just like the desire to look after my dad. I met a boy. Well, that takes courage to have any relationship, right? Because you don't know what you're getting, and I didn't. I did get a beautiful son, and I, got a new job in a place that I was, that I didn't know anyone, but also when they promoted me to Adam Brooks Hospital to set up the service, I had to cover the whole hospital, and I was, my job was effectively to teach the doctors and nurses about drug and alcoholism, change attitudes, plus see all of the clientele that came in that got referred to me who had any drug or alcohol issues. So in those instances, they didn't have a choice whether they saw me or not, because a lot of it was, I need to let the doctors know what to prescribe, and I need to talk to them about withdrawals. Whereas in the community where I've been working, that people have a choice whether they talk to me about their addiction. So it was very, very different. It was like acute crisis management plus the medical model, plus, there I was trying to change people's attitudes. Plus I was covering the whole hospital on my own with a very young son, and my marriage had broken down by this point. So this is I'm in my early 30s, and I started drinking really heavily, and I was kind of surrounded by, and when I say drinking really heavily, for me, that meant that I was probably drinking a bottle of wine a night, and I discovered exercise at the same time. So what I did was I started obsessively exercising, and I would say about 4 hours per day, and not like this wasn't I wasn't aware of this at the time, that this was becoming like an obsession, an addiction. My way of managing my stress, my marriage had broken down, my job was getting much, much harder because I was covering the whole hospital, and the primary care trust wouldn't give me any money for any support, so I was literally on my own. And of course, I really care about people, so I got very attached to the clients that were coming in and out, and I'd known them a long time anyway because I'd been working in the community prior to that. And so my boundaries were starting to get a bit blurred, and I was drinking and exercising and stopped eating. So this is like, if you look at that from the outside, I've got a small child, a divorce, my ex-husband's not paying me any money, I'm drinking, trying to counsel all these drug addicts. I normalized my own drinking because they're drinking way more than a bottle of wine. And this is just one day, and this is where I think courage and wisdom comes in. So if you look at my post earlier on this sort of Gratitude Tuesday post, where I'm like, there is a divine energy behind life, behind nature, that we're all attached to. Now, in the midst of that chaos, in the midst of me trying to control everything around me, not very effectively, I just had that insight, like, you cannot do this anymore. You just cannot do this anymore. And I just went in one day to my boss and I handed my notice in, and then I threw up because I had a mortgage to pay, a young son to look after, a father to look after, no money from my ex-husband, and I'd just given up a very, very well-paid specialist job with sick pay and holiday pay. So loads of people said I was mad, and I felt insane. I actually felt insane at the time. But looking back on that, I don't think it was insanity. I think I was absolutely following my wisdom and my guidance. And I just knew with all my heart I couldn't carry on doing what I was doing, and I felt that it was killing me. And so from that point on, having discovered exercise, I just took the next nudge, like, just take this next step. And it wasn't a step that I planned. I didn't have any goals. I just got like an intuitive nudge, and I just took that next step. It's like this video, like, you might be bored by now, you might still be watching. I just got the intuitive nudge. Tell your story, talk about courage, talk about how we all have innate courage. And so that's why I'm here, and I hope it's making sense. That the next step was do your personal training. So that's what I did, and I got a loan out, and I did this 12-week course, and I don't know, again, to this day how I did it, because I was still drinking, not as heavily, but quite heavily, and I was smoking quite heavily, and I was having to drop Zach at like morning club and after school club, because literally I was out from 8 until 6, and we got no bank holidays, and it was from October to December, bang, 12 weeks straight. And it was like personal training, so, you know, the physiology, which is all right if you've been a nurse, but I was a psychiatric nurse, so it wasn't all right for me, because I knew a lot more about the brain and the mind, which of course now I think stood me in good stead. Stood me, you know what I mean. And I did it. But after that, I realized, hang on a minute, you've gone from the top of your profession to the very bottom of your profession. What are you going to do now? So I kind of played about for a bit. I got a job in Sweaty Betty, got the sack, got different jobs all over the place, trying to make ends meet, and just like took the next step, had little clients here and there, charged £10. And what I thought was, I learn from the best. I'll just learn from the best. But in the meantime, I've still got my dad who's really ill, and my son is starting to grow up. You know, he's 6, 7, 8 at this point. And my dad's kind of getting really slowly, he's deteriorating, but he's moved now. He's had a leg amputation. He's sort of confined to a wheelchair. He's moved from Papworth Hospital to a care home as they started to put all the disabled people into the community, and he's now in Huntington, which is great because he kind of has an independent life, which gives me a bit of freedom. But he still phones me all the time, and I know I'm on 24/7 call, because every time he's in hospital, it's me that kind of goes and you know, looks after him. And time's kind of moving on, and I start doing massage and personal training. But at that point, I'm working with men and women. And I don't know if a lot of you know about how I got to be working with just women. So I'm doing massage in my house, naively, like pretty unsafe, but never mind, naive young 30-year-old. This man comes in and basically I always bet I've got my table and I wait and do my form. I'm kind of really trying to be professional and earn a new living out of this. And I go into the kitchen and I come out and he's naked in my house, like woohoo, singing it about. And I am like, oh dear God, what do I do? So I didn't know what to do. And I'm like, you really have to get dressed. And he starts running around and shaking his bits about. And he goes upstairs, he runs upstairs into my house. And I'm thinking, oh shit, what the hell am I going to do? So I'm like, panic, go into the kitchen, like really firmly, you have to leave, like trying to get his clothes on. I don't know what happened, right? The woman who was interviewing me asked me yesterday, what happened? How did you get him out? Do you know, I can't remember, but what I do remember is don't work with men ever again, right? Now that might seem like to me, it was like a really big deal, but what it meant was, when I got the intuitive hit to set up the outdoor fitness, which obviously everyone now knows as boot camps, which weren't around when I first started. Mine was called Outfit. And I was like, I'm just going to work with women. From that point on, I just worked with women. Now, of course, the intuitive hit to earn money. What can I do? Where can I take my son? I've got no childcare. I know I'll go to a park. That intuitive nudge took me to set up the boot camp, which became Cambridge Boot Camp, which became what it was when I sold it in 2017, was just an intuitive nudge. Now, each time, those nudges have been from what I consider to be divine wisdom, divine mind, the life behind nature, the driving force behind all of us. And that's how, when looking back, like it's like, oh, I was just really lucky, or oh, I was, what a fluke. And I'm not saying life has been easy, because it's been really up and down. And those of you that have known me a long time will know that when my dad died, when my dad died in 2016, I lost thousands of pounds because I had to pay other people to do my boot camps, and I wasn't doing any marketing. And then I got ill and ended up in hospital and was off for another 5 weeks and lost more money, ended up having to sell my house. And by pure chance or divine intervention, somebody chose to buy my business. But what that did then was it gave me the opportunity to just go off and for the first time since I was 21, go abroad and go traveling and do that sort of thing. But what I was still doing then was looking for something outside of me, believing, like if I did my yoga teacher training and went to India, I'd find myself. If I did enough OMS, I'd find myself. If I did enough meditation and flexibility, I'd find what I was looking for. And I went to India for 5 weeks. And it was great, but also it was fucking difficult. I went to Crete for 3 weeks. I went and lived off the land in Spain. I was all over the place. And I came back in October of 2017. And I met a friend. And this friend said to me, Charli, you have been looking all over the place. And you're never going to find it out there, because it's always been within you. And to this day, I don't think that friend of mine knows the impact that her words had on me, because I just was like, I suddenly saw the truth of that. I suddenly saw that all these other things that we think we're looking for to keep us safe, a new qualification, a thinner body, longer hair, a nicer relationship, no relationship, a dog, well-behaved children, money, all these things that we innocently believe will get us to where we want to be is just an illusion. And my chronic anxiety that I carried for years and years and years, which was like really acute complex post-traumatic stress after my brother died, came back after my dad died, was something that I managed for 24 years. Innocently, again, believing if I controlled this, if I could just control this, and if you put the plate in the wrong place, then that's really going to affect me, which of course it doesn't, but my belief was that it did, and it was. And like there, I can see the thread of courage, understanding, and love, like all the way through that, and wisdom. And I can also see this thread of fear and insecurity and worry and just tremendous anxiety and deep sadness, deep seeking, deep longing. And if I could have just seen through that was just my thinking, my insecure thinking, which of course it's taken me 44 years to see. I mean, I'm going to be 47 this year, but 44, 45 years. But actually that's not true, because when I was little, but that's a whole nother story. But anyway, I think it's conditioned beliefs, conditioned by society, conditioned by our parents. But what I want you to know is courage. It takes courage to do so much, to show up, to be open, to be willing to look at something different. And that's what I want to point you towards now as I move and develop this group. I'm going to be pointing upstream. I'm going to be pointing to your innate courage, your innate resilience, and your innate wisdom. I'd love for you to come with me on this journey as I discover more. I absolutely know there's hope for those of you that suffer with anxiety, suffer with insecurity, suffer with any sort of habits, addictions. I know there's hope because I'm proof of that. And whilst you may not believe me, I didn't believe people. It takes an insight, a sight from within, and all I can do is try and educate you in the best way that I know how to. And education, obviously, the Latin meaning of that is to, I've forgotten it now, but it's to teach from within or to learn from within. But anyway, it's not about outside in, it's about inside out. Education is actually about you discovering it for yourself. That's like a tiny snippet of my story, but also because I know each of you has an amazing story too, one which will have courage and resilience and insight and knowledge and power within it. And that's what I'm trying to create, this community of women who know that they're already enough, who know that they're not alone, who know that together you can do amazing things, but also on your own you can do amazing things. And it's about acknowledging that courage and that wisdom. And you may not hear that wisdom. You may not know what I'm even talking about. You may just have a sense that what I'm talking about is in some way true. But even if you just have a glimpse of it, then I'd love you to stay. And if it doesn't resonate with you and you want to leave the group, then go with love, and I don't mind. I'd love to have you stay and keep coming on this journey with me as I keep exploring this. It may sound a bit too esoteric for some people, and that's okay. I know when I first came across this conversation, I didn't have a clue. And again, I ended up there by divine intervention. So thank you for listening if you've listened this far. I'm really excited to keep talking about this conversation more, keep exploring it more with you. And I wish you lots of love today. And I know that you're enough already. I know that you have courage. I know that you have resilience. I know that you have innate mental health already within you. My hope is that you find that out for yourself if you haven't already. I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.